Pack your bags, we're going to Egypt. Just kidding, we're actually going to the small town of Guadalupe, California. The small town of Guadalupe, California, filled in as ancient Egypt and Cecil B. Demille's The Ten Commandments. No, not that 10 Commandments. Cecil B. DeMille made a silent version in 1923. After the filming was completed, the huge sets were knocked down and buried in the sand, and they're hidden there for nearly 90 years. Let's get down there and unearth this story. In 1982, aspiring documentary filmmaker Peter Brosnan read a blurb in Cecil B. DeMille's autobiography alluding that DeMille had secretly buried sphinx statues from his 1923 film The Ten Commandments in a California sand dune. After doing research on the buried set myth, Bronson and colleagues were allowed to survey the alleged sand dune location in 1983. And they found remnants of the set, plaster, and wood poking through the sand everywhere. They were set to launch an excavation when the Santa Barbara County Permit Office tied Bronson and his team up in thousands of dollars in permits. After stops and starts in 1985 and 1990, the Santa Barbara Permit Office requested a coastal development permit, which left the excavation on hold until 2011. And once again, right when they were about to start the dig, the Santa Barbara Permit Office shut them down once more. Geez, they sure could have used Doge back then. Finally, in 2012, they were given the go-ahead for 2 weeks of digging. This wild story, with all the twists and turns of a Hollywood drama, are in Peter Brosnan's excellent documentary, The Lost City of Cecil B. DeMille. It's currently streaming for free on Tubi. Welcome to Guadalupe. We need to drive to the outskirts of town, way over by the sand dunes out there. This is where the filming took place, on top of this sand dune. Now, this is basically a one-lane road. You can't park here, and it's also off limits. So we can't get up there. But I got a plan. Just take it all in briefly. That's where DeMille and all the crew and the cast, they built the huge sets. This was the most expensive movie ever made at the time. And the sets were massive. You can see all the broken pieces of wood and some plaster poking out through the sand dunes. And still to this day, underneath the dunes are more artifacts and more pieces of the set that have yet to be excavated. Man, I'm gonna get so much sand in my engine. Okay, we made it onto the beach. And Cecil B. DeMille was not the first director to utilize the dunes as a location. They were first filmed out here in 1921 in The Sheik, starring Rudolph Valentino, filmed here at Guadalupe Dunes. That was followed up with 2 sequels in 1926 and 1927, The Son of the Sheik and She's a Sheik. Son of a Sheik, it kind of sounds like a swear word. Son of a Sheik. Directly straight ahead is the general area of where the set was built, way out there on that sand dune. The gates of Ramses were 110 feet tall, and the city was 800 feet wide. I mean, check out the size of the people next to the gates of Ramses. This set was enormous. They even built a fake pyramid way off in the distance. They also made an obelisk. And off to the right, there was more buildings and palm trees. But almost even more impressive were the hundreds of extras they used in this film, many of them Guadalupe residents. A part of me really just wants to hop over this rope and run way out there on the sand dunes and check out the location. But if I did that, I would probably get fined, sued, and tortured like the Israelites in Demille's film. But although the dunes are off limits, they don't own the airspace. Blast! There goes my plan. I had no idea you can't fly drones here. Son of a sheik! I asked the park ranger over there if I could fly the drone. Tried to sweet talk her. I thought she was gonna let me fly it for a sec, but she said if she lets me fly my drone, then everybody's gonna wanna fly their drone here. Well, back to the beach. And the sun's coming out. Let there be light. Now the reason I can't take you up on the dunes is because of the snowy plover. This little bird cuts off whole swaths of the beach in California. They even cut off certain parts of the beaches where I live because of the snowy plover. And honestly, guys, between you and me, I love animals and all that, but I feel like the snowy plover would survive even if we could walk on the sand dunes. Just like Jeff Goldblum says in Jurassic Park, life finds a way.
Life, finds a way.
Directly over here is the hillside that you see behind Moses as he's leading the Israelites out of Egypt. Take a look at the hillside behind Moses. Notice all the different slopes and crevices in it. And there's that same hillside today. It's a little harder to see today with the low fog and the haze, but that's the hillside. Now, even though the Ten Commandments was filmed out here on this beach, this is not the beach where Moses parted the Pacific Ocean, the Red Sea. They actually filmed that scene at Seal Beach about 3 hours south of here near Long Beach. As the Egyptians on chariot are about to catch the Israelites, God brings down a wall of flames to block the Egyptians and protect Moses and the Israelites. So backing up, you can see that very pointy hillside from Seal Beach. Now, I'm not able to get down to Seal Beach right now, it's quite a ways away, but here's the best Google map I could find of it. Kinda hard to see, but there's that pointy hillside way off in the background. Why they filmed that down there, I don't know. It could be due to the pyrotechnics, maybe something about creating that wall of flames, or maybe the snowy plover doesn't like fire. They're very sensitive. I shouldn't rag on the snowy plover too much. Even if they didn't nest here, I'm sure the California Coastal Commission or some other environmentalist group would not let us over there. They're pretty hardcore here in California. And if people were allowed on that sand dune, I'm sure it would get pillaged and pieces of the set would get taken home as souvenirs. Which is exactly what happened after filming Wrapped in 1923. Some of the Guadalupe locals unearthed pieces of the set, took them home as souvenirs, put them on their farm, or put them in their front yard as lawn displays. 2 Sphinx statues used to sit outside the entrance to the Santa Maria golf course. They were there from the early 1920s, right after the filming ended, until about the mid-30s. Here's a postcard from around 1930 showing the statues outside the golf course. And the caption on the postcard reads, "Along the Coast Highway." And that's true because the Santa Maria golf course is right along what once was the Coast Highway, which is now Highway 135. You can see back then there wasn't much out here besides the golf course. Now there's a whole housing community butted up against it. I was only able to find 2 photographs from that era. One shows a woman getting her picture taken in front of the Sphinx statue. And what does that sign say? It says, "The Santa Maria Valley, the 10 Commandments filmed here." Well, technically 7 miles away in Guadalupe. So what happened to the Sphinx statues that used to sit right here? Well, by the end of the 1930s, they were gone. They disappeared. No one actually knows why, but most likely they probably just deteriorated in the sun. They were made out of plaster and some foam and a little bit of wood. They probably were just a victim of the elements. Okay, I promised you guys pieces of the 1923 film set, and this is the Dune Center here in Guadalupe. What they've unearthed out of the dunes is on display here at the Dune Center. Let's go take a look. Inside the Dune Center, they are all about the dunes. They're all about sand. And this reconstructed face are the first bits of set that were unearthed out of the sand, proving that there was a film set there and to keep digging. This must have been the Sydney Sweeney of ancient Egypt. I suddenly had the urge to become an archaeologist. Never in my life have I wanted to be an archaeologist more than I have right now. Okay, if you can't make out what this one is, you guys, let me give you a hand here. This is a paw of one of the sphinxes. After being buried in the sand for over 90 years, this face can finally say, "I'm ready for my close-up, Mr. Demille." Okay, that was awesome. Big thanks to Marshall at the Dune Center for answering some of my questions there. If you guys are in Guadalupe, definitely stop by here and check out these lost filming location pieces. So awesome. There used to be an auto parts store right here. It was called Perry's Auto Parts. And the owner, John Perry, had a claw from one of the sphinxes on display, along with a bunch of other oddities.
Yeah, this staff is from one of the Rudolph Valentino movies, The Sheik or The Son of the Sheik.
Here is John Perry at the end of the Lost City of Demille documentary, showing off some of his collection. Sadly, John Perry passed away in 2022. Where his claw is now and the other oddities, I don't know. And it got me thinking, are any old pieces of the film set lying around town somewhere? If pieces of the set were looted by Guadalupe locals in the 1920s, and from all reports, they have all vanished. All those pieces are gone or they've vanished. But has anybody asked anyone in Guadalupe if they have a piece of the filming site? You never know until you ask. Oh, that's great. Guadalupe, you've outdone yourself. If there are any remaining pieces of the Ten Commandments set in somebody's backyard or in somebody's home, I'm gonna need to find an old timer, a lifelong resident of Guadalupe. And I mean old. I gotta find somebody in their 80s. I need an octogenarian. So I went searching for an octogenarian, which proved to be a harder mission than I ever imagined. There's gotta be an octogenarian around here somewhere. Where's an octogenarian when you need one? I'm looking for an octogenarian. There's gotta be a bingo hall around here somewhere. And then I found some. Hi folks. I have a question about Guadalupe. No? Let's talk. Nobody wants to talk. They didn't want to talk, so I decided to approach this question from another angle. And I went to the Guadalupe City Hall. And the place for the most part was wide open. Except there was nobody there. Where is everybody in this town? So I went to the Guadalupe Historical Museum, and I approached the front door from every possible angle. Blast it closed. Looks like I'll have to stick a pin in this question if whether or not there are pieces of the set lying somewhere else around Guadalupe. That will have to be for another video. This is the historic Santa Maria Inn. This is where Demille and his crew stayed during the filming of the Ten Commandments. And this is where I'm staying tonight. The Santa Maria Inn has a long, celebrity-filled history, which I'll make a YouTube short on in the very near future. It's also said to be haunted, but this is where Demille and the cast and crew stayed, and this is where they relaxed also. And this is what $128 after tax gets you? Not bad. And it even comes with the good book, Placed by the Gideons, which has the 10 Commandments in it. It all comes full circle. But there's one more thing I want to show you. Those 2 palm trees out there were also in the 10 Commandments. After filming was completed, they were taken and they were planted at this farm just outside the preserve. Those 2 palm trees are on private property, but they don't own the airspace this time. There they are, palm trees from the 1923 version of the 10 Commandments. These trees are over 100 years old. And after filming at the sand dune right over there, they were planted right here on this farm. And as you're watching the film, you will see palm trees scattered throughout the set to really give it that feel that you're in Egypt. So why did Demille bury the sets in the sand? Well, there's 2 theories. One of them is that there were other filmmakers out here at the dunes making movies. You know, it was a silent era, and he was afraid they're going to use his sets and get their movies out before his was completed. Another one is that it was a very expensive movie to make, and it could have been a cost-saving measure. Instead of tearing down the sets and hauling them back to Los Angeles or wherever, it was probably cheaper just to knock them down and bury them in the sand. That's the most likely theory. Goodbye, 10 Commandments location. It's now time for me to leave and make my exodus. While you're out here, you can actually grab a giant piece of seaweed and recreate the movie. Pretend like you're whipping the Israelites. Get back to work. Back to Egypt with you. Get back to work.